Overcoming Barriers in Traditional Higher Education Training Program. Goals 2000 Educate America Act was the first education bill to establish a framework for new partnerships between the federal government and states, universities, local school districts, and schools to facilitate the six national education goals. The 1990s was characterized by a decade of restructuring American education with the emergence of school university partnership efforts as a driving force. Much of the research regarding these partnerships has focused on recommendations about what collaborations among partners may look like and how they might work. Partners are people who engage in a task or responsibility, particularly within the auspices of an organization or institution, for the purpose of addressing shared challenges and achievements. Partnerships are a social practice achieved through and characterized by trust and mutuality. Stakeholders trust that each individual brings beneficial expertise to the partnership. Partners work together, and they value the contributions that each person makes. Partnerships are formed around a common purpose. Partnerships, as an ongoing style of professional interaction, allows members to voluntarily engage in program planning, implementation, evaluation, and accountability. While there are many suggestions of how to create a partnership between a university and K 12 school district, the literature is limited in providing concrete actions to develop, sustain, and ensure a collaboration is effective and one in which the decision making process is mutually considered. Differences in culture are acknowledged, and theory taught by university faculty is merged with real world application in teachers' classrooms. In this study, we identified barriers present in partnerships facilitating traditional advanced training for K 12 educators, synthesized the literature around solutions to these barriers, and explored a new approach to addressing these barriers and the corresponding theory of action. This study began in response to a need identified by the research team composed of Dr. Melanie Leslie, Charity Gamboa Embley, Tala Karkar Espert of Texas Tech University, and Dr. Josh Barnett from the National Institute for Excellence in Teaching, or NIET. The research team decided to study the process of change in partnerships in higher education. After careful examination of the different issues concerning the Texas Tech University and NIET partnership, the team decided to analyze the advanced graduate certificate of the TAP Connect project. The next slide is a video excerpt of one of the team meetings wherein we identified the research problem to study.
Profit grants. But the idea of the grant gave everyone a reason to come together and provided the continuity for people to be willing to kind of take on this new task. It allowed the university to be willing to create a whole separate program and create a new strand because there was going to be funding for it. It brought the districts to the table because they were going to get something out of it at no cost, right? Districts are always, everyone's always trying to figure out how they can get a contribution. Or where do we get more resources? And a grant was going to provide those. And then the nonprofit group came together as the delivery mechanism. We were the program that was going to come in and help build and inform that partnership about taking our knowledge of K-12 and backing it into higher education. So again, think agnostically about what actually we are doing here. About
The scope of work for this study encompasses an examination of the effective collaboration between a nonprofit organization and a higher education entity. The project includes creating a review of related literature for a research project and building the reference list through an annotated bibliography, as well as completing a qualitative study. The research partnership officially started in September of 2015. Meetings were scheduled every Tuesday, and weekly tasks were drafted and implemented. Sometime in September of 2015, Dr. Josh Barnett of NIET met with us and discussed a research partnership. Later on, Dr. Barnett suggested specific topics pertaining to the current advanced certification program for the TAP Connect project. By October of 2015, we discussed and drafted our scope of work and began drafting the problem statement for the study. We also began working on an extensive literature review. We started by defining search parameters, reviewing sources for relevance, recording and sorting sources using an Excel spreadsheet, and then developing a draft of the reference section. A few of the target questions that guided the literature review phase included how the related literature explains the development of a job embedded advanced certificate for K 12 educators, barriers, key themes or challenges in traditional training of advanced certification for teachers and administrators, strategies offered in the extant literature for responding to each challenge, and theories pertaining to higher education partnerships denoted in the literature. A concrete research timeline was created and we submitted an IRB proposal in November of 2015. In November of 2015, we continued compiling and summarizing literature as well as categorizing each piece of literature based on relevance to the study. Jessica Alexander, research associate from NIET, was brought in as a reviewer. The creation of a dissemination plan was strictly adhered to in order to keep the research team on track. By December of 2015, we finalized our literature. A research methodology outline was also developed and detailed out in January. Our IRB was approved on the following month. By March, we finalized our interview guidelines and protocols so we could start on our data collection. We also sent out interview invitations to our prospective participants and scheduled interviews. We continued with our data collection towards April and began preliminary analysis. This study was guided by the following research questions. First, how do professional collaborations between a university, K-12 school, and educational national nonprofit organization operate? Specifically, how was this collaboration developed? How was this collaboration sustained? And how is the collaboration effective? Second, what barriers arise in such a collaborative effort? Third, how does the collaboration overcome the barriers? While there has been a great deal of research touting the success of university-school partnerships, there is also a growing body of research that illustrates the challenges involved in collaborative partnerships between schools and universities. The difference in culture can lead to barriers that can weaken the partnership and prevent mutually desired outcomes from being achieved. A barrier is considered an obstacle that prevents progress to a specific endeavor. Some common barriers that were found in relation to partnerships focused on traditional advanced training for K-12 educators were detachment of faculty from K-12 classrooms, selecting an admissions process that benefits both the university and the schools, a mismatch between student and university expectations about learning, and problems with integrating technology into instruction. The methodology section highlights the data collection process and data analysis implemented within the study. In the next slide is a video clip. Dr. Josh Barnett met with us and discussed steps in drafting our methodology.
And when you craft it, it can be, a method section is a little bit more like the recipe, right? Think about it if you were cooking something. The method section is the actual recipe that someone can pick up, and potentially anyone could read that recipe and make that. Now, they won't, right, because they're going to mismeasure some things, or they're going to tweak it, or they're going to do something or add something else. So the next person might do something different. But essentially what you're creating in a method section is my recipe for finding the conclusions I'm going to draw in the next section of this paper. And all the method section does is inform a reader and yourself, right? It's a record of what you did. For when I get to the end of this and I say there are 4 findings or 3 findings, or boy, this program really responded to the 4 barriers we talked about.
To address the research questions, data sources including copies of documents generated as part of the TAP Connect project, such as focus group notes and syllabi, interview transcripts, transcripts of weekly meetings, and field notes were gathered. The data collection process included adhering to the interview protocols set by the research team, member checking for respondent validation, and literature review procedures. We drew on grounded theory methods to analyze the textual data through a process of open coding, actual coding, and selective coding. The grounded theory approach generated explanations leading to the development of theories of actions in relation to the barriers identified in the study. The first step was to examine the documents, and then to constantly compare new data with the previous data and our own provisional interpretations. After conducting the first interview, the researchers decided on a tentative theme and jotted it down in a reflexive journal. However, after gathering information from interviewing the second participant, we realized that our initial tentative theme or interpretation needed to be expanded. By comparing our initial interpretation with our incoming data, we realized that we expanded our theme. This process will continue as we gather more information from participants. To create intercoder reliability, each researcher examined the same documents, such as transcribed notes, field notes, and artifacts. After reading all the documents thoroughly, the researchers color categorized the content based on the themes. Then, the researchers exchanged notes and did another round of examination. In the next slides, you will hear testimonies of challenges experienced by participants. Anticipate that might hinder the university from sustaining this partnership?
Oh, well, funding, definitely funding. It's not cost effective to have one faculty member doing a lot of work for a few number of students.
Mhm.
And so I think too, things like the Teachscape licenses, those things they take funding. And so I think that
the first cohort was really kind of tedious and kind of chasing everybody around, trying to get their transcripts and things like that. Going through withdrawal process, adding people kind of last minute, that type of thing. But it's been a lot smoother since then because we were able to learn. We needed to get everything on a one pager for the candidates. They know exactly who to contact, and that's me and Ashley Penner. We set deadlines that were a little earlier than we had set, in the past. And so now each semester they are automatically enrolled into their next course unless they.
It's been difficult to get this off the ground. First, we had some trouble, just to give you some background, we had some trouble getting our districts with the capacity to be able to support uploading the videos to Teachscape. We had user difficulties. A lot of these folks have not used technology in that way, and so we had a lot of struggles in the beginning just getting folks to understand how to upload. It would take them hours and ridiculousness. Then we had the nervousness about why are you without the relationship that's needed when you video or virtually coach someone. I think that it was difficult for folks. So in the beginning we had them with 1 to 2 videos.
Because what I just said, change is what educators fear. They see the university coming to change them. And as adults, we fear the word change. I don't want to change. You're not going to change me. That could be the way I teach, the way I approach, the way I understand TAP rubric. The word change encompasses fear. So I always look at it as a form of improvement. We're going out there to help improve what you're already doing. So instead of going in there with that mindset of I'm going to approach something and it's like, how do we refine this and improvement, right? Taking language from the TAP rubric, how do we refine this? How do we improve it? How do we really make this happen? So the challenge really becomes the adults that you work with see improvement very differently. Some adults have a fixed mindset. They'll smile and nod at you, and when you leave, they're not going to do anything different. Some are passive aggressive. Some are blatantly will say, no, I'm not going to do it. Or, I'm just very openly defiant. And that is not unique to teachers. That is instructional coaches, master mentor teachers. I've worked with some great ones, and I've worked with some individuals who have their personalities and their demeanor get the best of them. You know, they come across very negative, very overtaking and powerful, or bullying maybe, and it, you know, teachers do not work with them as the way they think they should be worked with, or back and forth. So those, once you get to know the individuals, those challenges of practice sometimes get in the way for student achievement, because now we're worried about the adults, and the adults are kind of in each other's space and face, and we forget about the students. And that's that's a big challenge for me. I want to get adults focused on the students again, because that's why we're all here. That's why I'm at the university. That's why we're in K through 12. We're supporting the students. It's not about fighting with the teacher and, you know, who has more power, and the master teacher, the mentor teacher, or the TLT. It's about everybody's really supporting the student. So I always try to turn the focus of any challenge into the student, back to the student.
And then I rethought it, you know, again, thought, well, it's just technology and I can overcome it. I'll take that class. And so I set time apart during January when it was offered to take the basics class for Blackboard.
How does this project address literacy education? Literacy education has been a major strand because of the need for quality literacy instruction in schools. Several of the artifacts in this study focus on literacy because literacy is an ongoing and pervasive need in the schools the university partnered with. Some of these artifacts included case studies presented by faculty, documents from 2 reading summits presented to schools by a faculty member, and an ongoing project of 1 faculty member who mentored a classroom teacher and participant in the Literacy Advanced Certificate in the Methods of Close Reading and Writing from Sources for most of the school year. The involvement of literacy professors in schools. For example, we analyzed references in meetings to the ongoing mentoring work of a faculty member with a teacher. Ms. T invited Dr. Leslie to work with her on implementing methods of close reading and writing from sources with her lowest class. They started by selecting methods together that would help students grow as readers and writers. Then, they created a rubric based on the skills in reading and writing Ms. T wanted students to acquire through the year. Along in December, Ms. T stated that working together with Dr. Leslie had helped her fall in love with teaching again. Ms. T also received a great deal of external validation through presenting their work at a national conference and shortly thereafter getting hired to be a mentor teacher at her school next year. In this clip, you will watch an excerpt of Dr. Melanie Leslie and Ms. T assessing student work and developing a plan for implementing close reading and writing from sources to her class.
Find a way to sort of get him over this hump. Like what I'd like to see for him is I'd like to see him write with more fluency and then go back in and worry about grammatical things. But I'd like him to just sort of be able to sit and write, and I think and I wonder, and even if it's not completely on topic, I would love to see that for him as a writer. That he's
So maybe we should do that next time. Just write any thoughts down. It doesn't matter if it's, you know, all over the place, it's fine. Just
Okay.
get your thoughts out on paper.
Okay, yes. Why don't we do that as a writing prompt? We've been sort of focused on a lot of writing from sources kinds of prompts to get them to go back into the text.
Yes.
But it's sort of like what we did last time.
Another artifact that the team examined were materials from reading summits requested by participating schools that dealt with literacy needs. Several of the literacy faculty presented day-long workshops to 3 different schools. Dr. Leslie also engaged in informal consulting work with several schools. This kind of ongoing outreach and professional development, very tailored to school needs, is typical of university-school partnerships. At this point in our study, we have engaged in a thorough review of literature and preliminary analysis of documents, meeting transcripts, and interview transcripts. We plan to be completely done with a publishable paper by June 1st. In July, we will submit a proposal over this project to the American Educational Research Association conference, and shortly thereafter submit a proposal to the Southwest Educational Research Association. Finally, Dr. Burnett has requested we continue studying the TAP Connect partnership next year to be able to gather more longitudinal data and capture the evolution of this work.